watching PowerNation. Coming up next, the transformation begins on our 85 Chevy Square Body. We strip the body down to bare metal and give you some tips and tricks along the way. We throw down some color and put a bow on this K-10 Square Body. This has got to be the most iconic design.
Welcome to Music City Trucks. I'm Brandon Burke, and on this episode, we're gonna be diving into the body and paint on our square body Chevy project. First thing we need to do is get rid of all this dirt from when we took it out to Woolies. While Mark's getting the chassis all built up and all those new parts hung, I've been working on the bodywork. I've already got the passenger side done. Now it's time to work on the driver's side. And normally we take everything to the blaster, but there's more than one way to strip paint off a vehicle. One is your tried and true aircraft paint remover. And the only really downside to this is it's messy. Then you got your angle grinder with a wire wheel. This one actually works really well. It's just gonna give you a nice forearm workout, and you might get a little acupuncture when these wires let go, so wear your safety glasses. My favorite is probably gonna be the Mud Hog. This is an 8-inch pad. This is like a big DA. It takes a lot of material off really quickly without damaging your metal. And then probably something everyone's familiar with is gonna be your normal 6-inch DA. You can use 80, 180. This is mostly for not stripping paint, but just getting the top coat ready for primer, getting all your imperfections out of there. Normally you don't strip a whole car with a DA. But let's start with the aircraft stripper and get some paint off. Ooh, yeah. It's been a long time since I used this stuff. Usually, it takes about 15 minutes to take the paint off.
Let's see. Oh, yeah.
Let's move on to the angle grinder with the wire wheel. Wire wheel works pretty good. Mud Hog time. That is why the Mud Hog is my favorite option. Takes a lot of material off really quick, and it gives you that nice 36 grit tooth for that epoxy to stick to. Last but not least, 6-inch DA. Now the one thing with the DA is you really don't want to try to take pinstripes off because it'll gum up your sandpaper. So what you need to do is get you a rubber eraser wheel. Get that pinstripe off where you can sand the paint underneath. So that's 4 ways you can strip paint off of a vehicle if you're at your house or a collision shop. Most of the time they're going to use one of these 4 ways. Paint remover, the paint stripper works really well, but there is still a mess and you still have to sand it to get the primer to stick. Wire wheel works excellent, takes all the material off, but it's pretty smooth, so you still have to abrade it. The 36 grit on a Mud Hog is, again, my personal favorite because you got the nice deep scratches and all the material's gone, so this is pretty much ready for primer. And then you got your DA, which is most of the time what a collision shop's gonna use to feather edge all those imperfections out and then get it ready for a top coat. Well, I call that bare metal, so the only thing left to do now is wipe it down, mask it up, and throw some primer on this thing.
Up next, Brandon sprays, sands, add some filler, all to get this body ready for some color.
So the primer we're using is Summit Racing's direct to metal epoxy primer. It's a 1-to-1. Always want to double check and make sure that the primer was mixed, even though it was on the shaker. Bodywork is probably my most favorite thing ever. It's probably hard to believe. I'll show you a little trick to get the paint or primer out of the can without making a mess. Because I'm sure anyone who's ever tried to pour paint out of one of these gallon cans gets it everywhere. So you take a razor blade. There, made yourself a little funnel. We are going to the 4 on the 1-to-1. And this is your catalyst. This is what's gonna activate the primer to cure up. So we're gonna go to the 4 on this one. Mmm, tasty. The primer we're gonna be throwing on top of our epoxy is Evercoat's Super Build. This is a really nice primer to get a panel straight and level. It's a polyester primer, and actually this one's got the guide coat built into it, so it sprays pink and sands gray, which is kind of cool. And we also got this from Summit Racing. This stuff pours 4-to-1. This primer is actually recommended to spray through at least a 2.0 tip. You can spray this through a 2.5 millimeter tip. Just depends on how much material you want on the panel. It's time to start blocking down our Super Build, and you might notice one thing. It's not pink anymore, and that's because I spent a couple days getting everything else in Super Build, so the pink kind of flashed off, so I'm just gonna have to sand it like normal primer with some guide coat. The whole reason you put guide coat down is to find your highs and lows to get rid of all the orange peel. So once the orange peel is gone, you're ready to do either body work or reprime or whatever your next step is. So we started this process with 36 grit on a mud hog. Now that the primer's on there, we're gonna go to 80, and that's gonna shape our panel. And the key is to get the biggest block on the panel that you can get. That way you get the flattest surface as possible. And you're trying to get the panel flat first before you cut down your edges. Right here, this dark spot, this is actually the epoxy primer coming through. So we're gonna stop there because I don't wanna burn all the way through this high build. So this spot actually is a little too low. You might not be able to see this on camera yet, but this is why Super Build is so great. There's 36 grit flat marks from where I took the bed liner off. See all those low spots? Low, 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 like all the way through here, flat spots here. This Super Build is literally gonna fill in all those, and then we're just gonna shape that panel back in. We lucked out on this truck because it was a really straight truck. So far, 0 body filler. Well, the whole bed's in 80. We've got the high spot down, and all we got left are some low spots here and here and a little bit on the bed sides. And we're gonna be fixing those with some Evercoat Rage Gold and Evercoat Metal Glaze Putty that you can find on Summit Racing. So let's get these low spots to not be low anymore. Oh yeah. Again, this is not gonna need much. It's pretty close. One thing about body fillers, you really want to start sanding it or shaping it before it hardens all the way up. Don't be going to lunch after spreading body filler, coming back and trying to sand it when it's a rock. This is an extremely thin layer. It's pretty good. 80 grit's done. Pretty sure all the body work's done, so let's hit it with 180 and see how straight it is. X pattern always. I can't say this enough about this truck. The straightest square body I've seen in a long time, maybe ever. Well, I'm gonna get the rest of this body in 180, and then I'm gonna show you guys how to make sure all the panels are straight before you lay your next round of primer.
Coming up, Brandon sprays the final coat of primer. Then, an in-depth look into final sanding. That's gonna be interesting.
That's smooth. Now that the panel's all blocked down, we're gonna be checking for straightness. We're gonna be using just some wax and grease remover and some rags. That way we can find any high, lows, or even some waves in the panel if we didn't block it correctly. I can see the camera guy. Hey, Greg. Oh, yeah. Underwear. Last round of primer. We're going back with another Evercoat product. This is Evercoat's FeatherFill that we also found on Summit Racing. This is another polyester primer, but it's going to be a lot thinner than the Super Build. And we got this one in buff because I like yellow. 32 ounces. You guys won't believe what the next step is. More sanding. This step is 320 grit. This is going to be for smoothing out all the orange peel. Not too much shaping going on. I might be the only one in the world who truly loves sanding. This is orange peel. This is what you're trying to get rid of. This is what gonna make your paint look rough. Now that we've got all the orange peel cut down with 320, it's time to go on, in some cases, to final sand, which is gonna be 400. But since we're going with the metallic color, we gotta actually take it all the way to 600. And at the end, I'm gonna show a little comparison of why you would only go to 400 for a solid color and 600 for a metallic color. This cuts very easy now. You can see it doesn't take much effort with the 400. Time for the actual final sand. 600 wet with just a soft block. This is the part where your fingers turn into raisins. I know y'all at home probably can't tell the difference between these three sections, but let me try to show you. 320. Looks smooth. Not that smooth. 400. Pretty smooth. This is good enough for most paint jobs. 600. That's smooth. Now, let me try to show you with the eyeballs. Throw a little guide coat on there. I'll have to sand this back off, but can you see those? Fine scratches. Hopefully you can see those. Those are a lot smaller scratches. And then that 600. Almost invisible. They're still there, but they're very fine. This is the point of no return. Once you get to 400 or 600, you can still fix things like pinholes, small cracks. You can spot prime and sand it back down because you don't want to find out in the paint process that you got in a hurry or that you got lazy. So take a little bit of pride, make sure all the body work is correct before you move on to the next step, which is painting. Now I just have the rest of this truck to do. So I guess I gotta get to it. Man, if I was nicer in school, I'd probably have more people to come help me. Just a day in the life of a body guy. Late nights.
Next, we lay down some color, show you an easy way to lay down some pinstripes, and we'll wrap it up with some nice, shiny clear.
Well, that took a lot longer than I expected, but we're finally ready for paint. The only thing we have to do is finish masking up the cab, and then we're gonna jam it, hang the doors, and get them aligned, and then paint the rest of the truck. Time to clean everything and then start spraying sealer. What we're doing is just making sure that we got sealer and base on all the door hinges, anything that's going to be really hard to get to once the door is actually on the truck. Last bolt. Let's see if I got this door all lined up. It opens. It shuts. Oh yeah, I'm calling that good. Sealer and our main color is sprayed. Now it's time to measure out for our two-tone, which is going to be the silver in the middle. Now there's more than one way to skin a cat. Some people like to do the smaller color first. I chose to do it this way. That way the whole truck had a uniform color before we actually put our silver down. And really the only thing you need is measuring device, the pictures on the phone that we took before we stripped the truck down, and some tape. 12 inches. Don't want to pull on it too hard, just enough. Oh, I'm good with that. This is gonna get a red pinstripe, so I want the line to be clean. I like that. That looks pretty dang good. That's it, everything's taped up. We got the overspray plastic on. It's pretty much time to spray some silver. We decided to go with painting our stripes on instead of the traditional stick-on stripes, and that's kind of why I went with the order of which I painted the truck in. That way the stripes are not buried in the first layer of paint, they're actually on the last layer. That way, at least if you feel them, it kind of feels like an original stripe would feel. But we already got this door done, so I'm gonna show you how to lay these stripes on the bedside. First thing you wanna do is decide on the spacing of your stripes. We're gonna go with 1/4 inch and 1/8 inch. Now we're gonna use the 1/4 inch as our border of the silver. And what I'm gonna do here is leave a little bit of the silver showing. That way I know there's no blue. First stripe done. Now our spacing for our next stripe is gonna be 1/8 inch. Again, very close, but not touching. And then our second stripe is gonna be 1/8 inch. We'll stack that on there as well. This is going to be our top border. Last layer, I swear. Now we get to peel the inner layers out. The bottom line. I like it. I like it a lot. All right, now all we gotta do is finish masking up with the paper and shoot some red. This is the point where you can actually stand back and really appreciate all the hard work you've put into your paint job. Probably have about 200 hours into this at this point, and let me tell you, I'm really satisfied with the way this truck turned out. Super straight, the color scheme, and I'm really glad that we decided to paint the pinstripes into the truck. It looks really good. Now that the truck's done, we can go ahead and give it to Mark so he can finish up with the frame, and before I go help him, I actually have a few more pieces to paint.